Okay, so these are the things that we were talking about. We discussed about the some basic components. It's kind of a recap regarding our lesson. So we had some classification, general classification about the computer system, which has hardware, software, and firmware inside it. Right, and we recap the things that we have done in the first and the second lesson, and we talk about how to initiate, or like how the powering up process is happening with the system unit, and we saw a small video, as I remember, right? And then we talk about the categorization of the softwares. So it is again a recap kind of a thing, where the softwares are like divided into two parts: the system software and the application software. And application software is the general applications that we are using every day, and the system softwares are being categorized into operating systems, utility softwares, and the language translators, right? And yeah, as we talk about the application software, then we discuss about the importance of the operating system. And I told you, with this diagram, you can understand how important your operating system is, because operating system is the one which is connected with each and every other component in a computer system, like application software and other system softwares and hardwares, as well as human users, right? So this blue color one, the operating system, is the one who is interacting mostly inside your computer system, right? So today we are going to talk about the several different operating systems, which you may already know most of these things, right? But there are some evolution period, or like there are some story behind these operating system of how they have came onto the place that they are like on today, right? So first one that we are talking about is the Microsoft Windows. So it is start as the it has started long time back as the Windows 95. Like before that, MS-DOS, the disk operating system, were there. So with the evolution, today we are experiencing Windows 11 in our list, right? And as well as it has a mobile version, and some cloud version is like on the operation, like that means like they are still under development. And apart from the standalone version, there is something called Windows Server version as well, like when you where you can install Windows operating system in a one particular computer, which we call the server, and we can let many other computers to access that server operating system through a network, and given them the facility to experience the Windows environment. And the Mac operating system, or like the Macintosh operating system, which is given by the Apple Corporation. So earlier, they were building this for the computers. They were the main competitors with the Microsoft. And later, they came up with the iOS, which they have built for the mobile devices, which is now very much popular in the world, and it is been number one brand for several decades now. No, actually, for several years, not decades, for several years in the world, right? And Ubuntu operating system, it's a free and open source operating system, like the one that we talk about in here, as well as in here. The Microsoft and the Apple, or the Macintosh, are both needs to be paid if you need to use them. But when it comes to the Ubuntu operating system and many other free and open source operating systems, we don't need to pay for those operating systems. We can just install it by downloading the setup file from the official website, and we can just install it. The only thing is the Ubuntu operating system is a little bit alien for us. It is because we are like not very much used to that particular operating system. It's the Microsoft and the Macintosh are the popular operating systems in the world. Not the Linux, but still there are a considerable amount of crowd who is using the Ubuntu operating system, right? Or in simple terms, Linux operating system. And Android operating system is the one which is the famous, like the iOS. And for the reason, the reason for the Macintosh or like the Apple Corporation to build an iOS, it is this kind of an operating system that they found as an open source one, right? So Android operating system are open source operating system. So anyone can use that. Anyone can change its appearance as they want. That is why Samsung phones are having a different version, a different appearance for the same version. And the Huawei phones have different appearance for the same version, same Android version, right? So likewise, since it is a free and open source one, any company can have it and change it as they want. But free and open source does not mean that it does not have an owner. Android operating system is owned by the Google Corporation, right? So Google Corporation has allowed all the users or any particular person who is having the knowledge of editing an operating system to edit their version. And because of that, the versatility of the operating system, the Android operating system is massive. If you get like Samsung, Motorola, the Huawei, MI, right? There are various brands who are using Android operating system in many different ways, right? So due to that, it has become the main competitor of the iOS devices, right? And as well as since the Android operating system is free and open source, the devices, which includes the Android, is much cheaper comparing to the iOS devices, right? Because when someone purchases an iPhone, they need to pay for the hardware plus for the operating system that they are using. But when it comes to the Android mobile phones, they only pays for the hardware, not for the operating system that they are using. It is free. And this Hantana Linux is something which is built by Sri Lankans, right, from the Peradeniya University. And still they are maintaining that. And it is a modification of a Linux operating system, as well as the Ubuntu. The base is Linux when it comes to the Ubuntu operating system, as well as to the Hantana Linux. So that's why I told you, when the operating system is free and open source, you can take it and you can change in the way you want. But to do the changes, you should know how to manage an operating system or how to change an operating system. That specific skill you should be gained. Okay. So before we move to the next topic, the types of operating systems, let's watch some videos how these operating systems are being evolved during the time, right? Okay, let me see that. All right, this is regarding the Windows operating system. A small
Hey everyone, I'm back with a new evolution clip. Before you start, make sure you subscribe for more interesting videos. Enjoy watching. The first version of Windows was launched in 1985 as an extension of the MS-DOS operating system. Through it, the user could browse a virtual desktop, opening multiple windows and displaying the contents of folders with a single click. Also, Windows 1.0 came with Windows Paint, Windows Write, Calendar, Clock, Notepad, File Manager, a terminal application, and last but not least, with a game called Reversi. The second version of Windows was launched in 1987, being more popular than the first version due to Microsoft Word and Excel applications. At the same time, this version of Windows included new features such as overlapping windows, resizable windows, keyboard shortcuts, and support for VGA graphics. Windows 3.0 is considered the beginning of the world's popularity as a desktop operating system. It appeared in 1990 with DOS multitasking programs and the first appearance of the solitaire game. 2 years later, in 1992, version 3.1 was released with important new features such as the ability to scroll icons, support for TrueType fonts, and support for OLE compound file. At the same time, it was the first version of Windows distributed via CD-ROM. Windows NT 3.1 is a server and business desktop operating system launched in 1993. It was a 32-bit operating system and allowed several new functions, for example, User Manager, NTFS file system, network administration tools, and performance monitor. The second version of the Windows NT operating system is Windows NT 3.5, released in 1994. The main purpose during the development of this version was the speed of the operating system, which is why it was named Daytona after Daytona International Speedway. Windows NT 3.5 features performance improvements that require less memory, and new features in this release include the introduction of file names up to 255 characters long, object linking and embedding, and support for input-output completion ports. In 1995, the third version of Windows NT was released, namely Windows NT 3.51. This version had two major improvements. It was Microsoft's first operating system developed on the PowerPC architecture and provides client-server support for interoperating with Windows 95. Windows 95 was launched in 1995, as its name suggests, representing the most iconic version of Windows. It was the first version of 32-bit Windows, included the Start menu, the taskbar, and the plug-and-play function. Also, another important thing included in Windows 95 was the introduction of the Internet Explorer browser. It was the first version of 32-bit Windows, included the Start menu, the taskbar, and the plug-and-play function. Windows NT 4.0 was released in 1996 and was Microsoft's first business-oriented operating system. It is a 32-bit operating system with a graphical interface similar to that of Windows 95. In 1998, Microsoft released Windows 98. This release came with Outlook Express, Microsoft Chat, Web Publishing Wizard, new hardware drivers, improved USB support and accessibility, and the FAT32 file system that supports disk partitions larger than 2 GB. Windows 2000 came with a number of new features such as an improved device manager, Windows Media Player, and a revised DirectX. It also had a multilingual user interface, with users being able to choose their display language. Also in 2000, Windows ME Millennium Edition was released, later nicknamed the Mistake Edition, because users reported a multitude of problems with its installation and operation. Restoration that could remove and restore certain updates following a faulty installation of a program. In 2001, Microsoft released Windows XP in 2 versions, Home and Professional. This version was a real success because it was really designed for the consumer, especially in terms of design. It had strong colors, the start button was green, and the themes could be customized. Among the important functions it was equipped with were CD burning software, desktop search, remote desktop, and improved security. Windows Vista was released in 2007 and came with several useful features such as Windows Defender, DirectX 10, speech recognition, and Windows DVD Maker. However, Vista was not a successful version of Windows because it offered low performance, high resource consumption, and user account control dialog boxes became annoying for users. To fix the mistakes made with Windows Vista, Microsoft released Windows 7 in 2009, which proved to be much more efficient than the previous version. This version had a much faster overall performance, could recognize handwriting, the user could preview minimized application windows. Windows 7 also came with Internet Explorer 9 and Windows Media Player 12. Windows 8 was released in 2012, and in terms of appearance, it was totally different from previous versions. This version offered the user the opportunity to connect with a Microsoft account, had support for USB 3.0, Xbox Live integration, and had a lock screen similar to a smartphone. A year later, version 8.1 was released as a free upgrade to troubleshoot Windows 8. So, in the new version, there was again a Start button on the taskbar, improved performance, and better SkyDrive integration. In 2015, Microsoft launched Windows 10 with the following important features: Cortana, a personal digital assistant, Microsoft Edge web browser, which replaced Internet Explorer, the ability to switch between tablet and desktop mode, and many other enhancements and shortcuts that give users a much more complex and at the same time simple experience. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video. See you in the next video.
Yes, so it's up to the 2010, like not regarding the 2011 or like the Windows 11. I think you people have experienced the Windows 11 already. Isn't it, people? Anyone who has not experienced a Windows 11 yet? Okay, so for the moment, it's the Windows 11. Yes. So for the moment, it's a Windows 11 that is going on, right? Even though I have experienced the Windows 11, I haven't updated my PC, my laptop to the Windows 11 yet, right? Because I'm still having some second thoughts of let me give some time to grow the Windows 11 into a much stable version, right? Because there are still some bugs are going on with the Windows 11 version. So I will have some time, then I will upgrade. Still, I'm having some thoughts, so let's see. All right, so that's the story about the Windows. And it is a licensed software, right? So now I'm going to show you like how the Ubuntu is working. Yeah, after this advertisement.
In this video, we look at Ubuntu 21.10's new features and key changes to help you decide if it's worth installing or upgrading to, and spoiler alert, yeah, it is. Ubuntu 21.10
so these are some
9 months of support.
New features.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, you'll be able to upgrade to Ubuntu 22.04 right? Next April, and that's supported for at least 5 years. The desktop may look familiar, but this release uses GNOME 40 by default, which introduces a horizontal workspace switcher and a revamped app launcher. It took me no time at all to get used to the horizontal workspace switcher, and you can drag and drop windows between desktops directly or by using the tiny thumbnails stripped across the top. New multi-touch gestures are enabled on Wayland for entering the workspace switcher, opening the app launcher, scrolling from side to side, and then exiting. Gestures are all one-to-one, meaning they move as fast or as slow as your fingers do. Ubuntu integrates GNOME 40 overall pretty well, considering that the vanilla version is designed around a dock that sits off the screen and at the bottom of the display. While I think Upstream's intended layout is better balanced overall, Ubuntu Spin is still fully functional, and you can always move the dock to the bottom of the display yourself. Talking of the Ubuntu dock, there are a couple of minor tweaks here. Running apps are now separated from your pinned apps by a divider, and the trash can has moved off the desktop and onto the dock itself. You may have noticed that this version of Ubuntu uses a light theme by default for apps, menus and dialogues. However, the core GNOME Shell UI is still dark, and if you want a fuller dark experience, you can dive into the Settings app to enable it. Firefox is now included as a Snap app by default on all new installs of Ubuntu 21.10. Now, Snap apps get a bad rep due to their slow startup times from cold, though they do get faster on subsequent launches. Though controversial to some, this change is likely going to go unnoticed by the majority, especially as promised speed boosts and feature fixes roll out in the coming months. The Wi-Fi panel now puts previously connected wireless networks at the top of the connections list. You can assign a custom compose key for entering advanced characters, and the About page now shows more details like your OEM and model number, though annoyingly still not your kernel version. Ubuntu's file manager can now sort items by creation date. File transfer and progress dialogues are said to be more accurate. Tab autocomplete is enabled in the location bar, and you can unpack password-protected zip files in Nautilus directly. Among Impish's itinerary of app updates is LibreOffice 7.2. This includes a new HUD-style command search menu, faster startup times, and better Microsoft Office compatibility. Thunderbird 91 is present with a hugely improved email account creation wizard and support for multi-process plugins. Ubuntu's default calendar app can, at long last, open and import events from ICS files. A ton of additional software is available in the Ubuntu software app, including big hitters like Spotify, Discord, and Visual Studio Code. Also worth checking out are GNOME 40's core apps, like the redesigned weather tool, the improved Maps client, and the increasingly capable open-source web browser Epiphany. System requirements have not changed, so if your device can run other versions of Ubuntu, it can also run this one. Indeed, performance is likely to have improved thanks to a combo of kernel driver and codebase upgrades. In addition, users with NVIDIA graphics can now run Ubuntu on Wayland. Work on a new Ubuntu installer made using Google's Flutter took place this cycle, though it isn't yet complete enough to ship by default. Something to look out for next time. So that's it for Ubuntu 21.10, impish by name, but overall pretty interesting by nature. There's a bright new theme, a refined user experience.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, right? It's like we are experiencing the Android in a full screen, like in the tablet version, right? So if you have a Windows PC, you can create a separate partition and install the Linux operating system into your computer, into the same computer, while you are having the Windows operating system, right? So which we can make it as a dual boot operating system. So don't try to do it if you don't have the idea about what you are doing. It's better you ask the help for the technician. So they will make it as a dual boot one. So yeah, like get to know about these things will be a very good thing since you are learning ICT, as well as we don't need to spend money on the operating system by purchasing a license key and all these things, uh, which we are going to do on the Windows and iOS and all these things. Right, specifically for the people who have financial difficulties, if they have a device, if they don't have money to purchase the Microsoft or iOS, this will be a very good alternative. And it is very pleasing to see something like this. Right. And the people who are doing this, they are just contributing their skills without getting paid, which they are doing a very kind and very appreciate-full work in the world. Right. Okay. So that is about the Linux operating system, which is a free and open source one. And yeah, now I'm going to show you the one people who are very much interested. That is Macintosh operating system.
Studying at Melbourne Polytechnic with hands-on learning by industry specialists means you
There you go. yeah, that's how it has been evolved, right? So it's kind of they try to maintain the uniqueness of their operating system, and as well as they have the unique set of softwares in their operating system. That's what make Apple as a unique operating system in the world. That's why it has been popular always, because still no any other operating system developer has the ability of attacking, like making the softwares which is very much synergizes, or which is very much user friendly uh, with the user, right? So that is why the people who are tend to use a MacBook or an Apple device, they are not going to go, they are not going to let go that device, because it is that much friendly to the user, and it makes the user feel comfortable to work with those kind of devices. Right. So the last one that I'm going to show you is how the Android is evolved, and I think you know that the Android versions are coming in an alphabetical order,
WordTune
right?
is your rewriting,
Like,
rephrasing,
it starts from A to
rewording,
Z,
expialidocious
like
Chrome
Right, so
extension.
let's see how this
Simply
is,
highlight the
how this
sentence,
has happened
hit
from the
Word.
beginning.
The first version of Android was available on the HTC Dream smartphone
Yeah,
in
so this is
2008.
Android 1.0.
The operating system included Google
Starting from
Maps,
A.
YouTube, an HTML browser, Gmail, instant messaging, text messaging, MMS, and more. Something that was an innovation at the time was the Google Play Store, then called the Google Market, and an app store that Google claimed had dozens of unique, first-of-a-kind Android applications. Just 4 months after the launch of the first version of Android, the launch of Android 1.1 took place. What brought this version new was that users could save attachments and messages. Details and reviews were available for businesses on Google Maps, and longer in-call screen timeout by default when using the speakerphone, plus the ability to show and hide the dial pad. The next major update for Android was version 1.5 in 2009, which was the first version to use Google's dessert-themed naming scheme and the first Samsung Galaxy phone to have the new Android 1.5 Cupcake. Cupcake had new features and enhancements which we find in current versions, such as the ability to upload videos to YouTube, automatic screen rotation, third-party keyboard support, support for widgets, copy and paste features on the web browser, and the ability to check phone usage history. Also in 2009, Google released Android 1.6 Donut, and the new features included support for CDMA-based networks, and a very important thing in this version was that it supports different screen sizes, meaning phone manufacturers could create devices with different screen sizes. Also, Android 1.6 Donut included the quick search box, the quick switching function between the cameras, the power controlling widget to manage Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. 1 year after the launch of the first version of Android, the second version appeared, Android Eclair. This was the first version with text-to-speech support, included support for multiple accounts, live wallpapers, Google Maps navigation, and a lock screen that allowed drag-and-drop unlocking. Eclair's 2.1 update brought bug fixes and minor changes to the API. Android 2.2 Froyo was launched in 2010, and the phones that came with this version had several new features, such as mobile Wi-Fi hotspots, push notifications via Android Cloud to device messaging, and the ability to lock the phone with a PIN. Android 2.3 Gingerbread was launched in 2010, and the first phone with this version was the Nexus S, co-developed by Google and Samsung. The new version of Android had an updated UI design, had support for extra-large sizes and resolutions, support for NFC function, improved keyboard, support for multi-touch, and support for the front camera. In 2011, Android Honeycomb was released to be installed only on tablets and phones with larger screens, and had functions that could not be managed on phones with smaller screens. The most important function brought by this version is to eliminate the need for the physical button, because virtual buttons have been introduced for the start, back, and menu buttons. The next version of Android, Android Ice Cream Sandwich, was released in 2011, and combines many of the features of the Honeycomb version. This version introduced support for unlocking the phone with the help of the camera, the possibility to monitor the use of mobile data and Wi-Fi, sliding gestures to reject notifications or tabs of a browser. In 2012, Google released Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, and immediately after that, version 4.2 and 4.3 were released. This version relied heavily on the notifications side and the introduction of Google Now, which could be accessed by swiping the screen to access the calendar, emails, or weather. Also, the most significant update was the improvement of UI performance and functionality through Project Butter. The launch of Android 4.4 KitKat took place in 2013 and had many interesting features, such as the blue accents found in Ice Cream Sandwich and Jelly Bean became whiter, and many storage applications displayed lighter color schemes. Also, with the OK Google command, the user could access Google Now at any time and could work on phones with a minimum RAM memory of 512 megabytes. Android Lollipop was launched in 2014 with the Nexus 6, which was the first to feature Google's material design philosophy. VM Dalvik had been replaced with Android Runtime, which means that some of the processing power required for applications was provided before they were opened. Also, the navigation bar has been renewed and the notifications looked better on the lock screen. At the same time, a DOS mode was available that shut down background applications if they were no longer used to save the device's battery. Android Marshmallow was launched in 2015 and brought important changes and features such as a new vertically scrolling app drawer, support for biometric fingerprint unlocking, USB Type-C support, Android Pay, the introduction of the Memory Manager, and the possibility to set the volume for device, media, and alarms separately. Google Nexus 6P and Nexus 5X were the first devices to have Android Marshmallow pre-installed, and studies show that this operating system is found on 32.2% of all Android-based devices. In 2016, Google released Android Nougat and includes improved multitasking features, especially for devices with larger screens. Thus, the split-screen mode was introduced. The fast switching between applications, Google Now was replaced by Google Assistant, and the notification system was also improved. Google Pixel, Pixel XL, and LG V20 were the first phones to come with Android 7.0 Nougat. Android Oreo appeared in 2017 and brought a series of visual changes in the settings menu, together with native support for picture-in-picture mode. There is the possibility to activate, deactivate, or sort the notification channels according to importance. Changes have also been made to the emojis, so the blob style for the emojis has been replaced with emojis that were consistent with other platforms. Android Pie was launched in 2018 and brought many improvements on the visual side. Thus, the traditional navigation buttons have been removed in favor of an elongated button in the center, which is the new Start button. Swiping up this button provided an overview of recently used applications, a search bar, and 5 application suggestions. At the same time, this Android version also brought improvements to the battery life. Shush was introduced, which automatically puts the phone in Do Not Disturb mode when its screen is placed on a flat surface. With Android 10, Google announced a rebranding of the operating system, eliminating the naming scheme used in older versions of Android. Google has also announced a new logo and a new color scheme for Android. Android 10 removed the navigation buttons, now using gestures. Dark mode was available at the system level, and users have more control over permissions for applications. Support for foldable smartphones with flexible displays has also been introduced. Google will launch Android 11 starting September 8, 2020, and will bring changes to the notification system. Specifically, it will be anchored in chat applications to facilitate the conversation with the sender of the message directly from the notification. Google is also introducing chat bubbles, a function similar to Facebook's chat heads. By long pressing the power button, the phone will display a new control center that includes quick access to credit cards, and here you will also find Google Home. In terms of security, Google has created new methods for protecting users' data. For example, the user will be able to provide access to various components of an application only once, and the next time it starts, it will require access again. Tell us in the comments what Android version you use and what phone you have. See you in the next video.
Yes, people. So that's how it has been developed until the 2020. And in between these 2 years, there are new versions has been there. in most of the in like almost all the operating system versions, right? Let's look into those later, right? I'm going to take your concentration into the note again, right? So after the different kinds of operating systems, we are going to talk about the types of the operating system. Now, this is the earlier we were talking about the brands, right? So like the several companies has made operating system for several different devices. Now, the types that we are going to talk is like all these operating systems can be categorized into these types. So there can be single user operating system. That means only one particular user can use that operating system, right? So when it comes to the single user operating system, so the earliest operating system that we can remember or like that we can take into consideration is MS-DOS, Microsoft DOS, right? Disk operating system. So other than that, even the Windows is also a single user operating system, the one that I'm using, right? Because only I will be able to use this operating system per time, right? No one else will be able to use this operating system with me. That doesn't mean that not that another can sit with me or like sit beside me and using this thing, but I'm doing a different task and that the other user should be able to do a different task from the same operating system. So the version that I have installed here is not capable of that particular things, right? So single user operating system and multi-user operating system. Now, multi-user operating system are the Windows server types or the Linux server types operating system. Like I told you, I can install a particular operating system into a server, right? So this is what they are indicating as a server. So the operating system will be here. And these computers, they don't have operating systems, but they are connected to this server through a network. So what they can do is they can connect to this network and take the operating system's facilities into this, right? So this is called the server. And the small computers who are receiving the service are called clients, right? So in that case, one single operating system has been used by many different users. So that is why it is called multi-user operating system. Are we clear about this, people?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So now I'm taking your consideration to the multitask operating system. Multitask operating system means an operating system which can do many tasks at the same time, right? So it's a simultaneous process, right? So like if you think about the MS-DOS, the Microsoft Disk operating system, the Disk operating system is something like this, right? So we have DOS prompt in our computers as an application now. So this was the very first operating system given by the Microsoft before Windows. Microsoft Disk operating system. So it is kind of a black screen. So this is not a multitasking operating system. This is called a single task operating system. So we can give a particular command and press enter. So it will do the task regarding that particular command. So I have used the command called dir. So this is the output I got regarding the dir. So dir stands for directory. So it's a single task, right? One task is given, it will be executed. So if I need to do something else, I have to do it, give the another particular command, right? Then it will execute that particular command. So these are called single task operating systems. But the one that we are using these days, so even when I'm talking to you, the one that I'm using is called the multitask operating systems, right? So multitask operating system, it is capable of doing many things in a given second, right? So if you think about my computer, I have opened the YouTube, the browsers, and several different browsers are there, right? And I'm working with Zoom because I'm in a video conference, and I have opened the PDF, the reader, right? So 3 different softwares are running on the same time. So these are the applications which are run by the user, that means me. But if you log into the task manager, you press Control Alt Delete on your computer and click on the task manager, you can see there are various processes, right? Look at this. Many number of processes are running. Not only my 3 particular process. So if I go to the fewer details, I can see what are the user process only. But if I go for the more details, it will show me all the processes running inside my computer. So if you want to know how many devices, or like how many processors are being processed for the moment, you can go for the performance tab. And if you go to the CPU, yeah, can you see this number? 236 processors over here is getting involved for the moment, right? So that processes are being like decomposed into the component called threads, and those threads are again decomposed into the small part components where they says the handling part of the threads or the handles of the threads. So this much of tiny processes are being maintained by the CPU for the moment. So it is obviously multitasking, right? So any particular operating system that we are used to use today, like Windows, Android, iOS, Macintosh, Ubuntu, anything, can be considered as a multitasking operating system. Then there is a category called real-time operating system. Now, this is specific, not that not every one of us are using a real-time operating system, but we can experience it, right? You go to a ATM has an operating system which is real-time. When we withdraw some money in real time, it will reduce the bank balance of our account. Happens on the real time at the very moment. If we deposit some money, it will increase our bank balance at the same time, right? So those are called real-time operating system. Whenever we are providing the input, according to that, output is being generated instantly, right? And I think you have experienced an ATM, right, with your parents or maybe individually, right? It's a real-time one. Okay, so those are the types that we are going to experience regarding the operating systems. People, are we clear about this?
Clear, sir.
Right, great. Okay, so then we are moving to the services of an operating system. So when it comes to the services, we got 2 major services from operating system. First thing is, it provides us a user interface. Now, when you on the computer, this is what you get, right? So through this, you know how to interact with the computer. You know, if you want to see where your files are, you know, you have to open the file explorer, and there are various places that you can access to check whether your files are there. So if I click on this PC, it shows me how many, how big my hard disk is and what are the partitions of it, right? And it shows like where my files are being stored. So if you think about the location that our files are being stored physically, it is inside my hard disk. And it is a hardware. And the data on the hard disk are in ones and zeros format, which I cannot understand properly. So what operating system does is it acts as an intermediary in between me and my hard disk and create an environment where I can understand the files and the data which I have been stored in a human readable format, right? So whatever that we are creating here is something that we can read, something that we can understand, right? But these are not the real data on the hard disk. Hard disk, it represents these data as ones and zeros. And operating system is the one who clarifies these data towards me as well as towards the hard disk, right? Hard disk එක පැත්තට ones and zeros විදිහට එයා clear කරනවා. User එක පැත්තට human readable format එකකින් එයා එක manage කරනවා. Right? So this is the reason why we are so much attached to the devices. Operating system is the key point for making a particular device user-friendly. Right? Now, think about the disk operating system, the DOS. If we have this particular interface today on this computer, I am pretty sure I am not that much of interesting about this particular device, because I have to type some particular text and my output is getting or like receiving as a text, right? It's like reading a paper, right? Nothing much difference from this. But when we are given this kind of appearance, we are very much interested about these things. So it gives us many details about what we have and keep us, the correct word is addictive, keep us addictive to the screen, right? So that is the major aspect of the operating system. And there are hidden parts or like the services which are being hidden from us when it comes to operating system is what we call managing the hardware of a computer. That's why I told you it manages the storage. Like I said, it manages the hard disk. So likewise, it's going to manage the RAM, the memory. It's going to manage the storage, like I said earlier. It's going to manage the process that you can see here. And like I show you through the task manager. And it manages the security by providing us the username and the passwords, right? So those are the other services given by the operating system, right? So let's come to the topic called process management. Now, what do you mean by a process? So for the moment, you know, if I press my start button on my operating system, it shows me all the programs that I have installed into this computer. And what should be the physical location of these computers, of these programs, people? So when I'm installing a particular program, in which hardware component that they have been stored? Yes? Anyone? In which hardware component that we are storing the data? Majorly in a computer. Yes? Any answers? Lamai, give me a moment. Yes, people, I'll ask the question again. Where do I store all these things? What's the physical component in my computer which stores these, which has stored these particular programs? Yes? Anyone? Take a guess. In which part that I am storing these programs and data? What's the physical component? Is it the mouse, or is it the keyboard, or is it the central processing unit, or is it the random access memory? Yes, Dilendya, you are right. It's the hard disk, right? So when I'm not executing any particular program, it stays inside the hard disk, right? So what will happen when I'm executing a program? So now there is no any Word document over here that I have been executed. So my word processing software, MS Word, is residing in the hard disk. So when I click on this particular command or like particular icon, it starts executing the word like this. Now it is executing. So now I'm running the program. I'm running the program means until I click on that particular device, particular icon, it was there in the hard disk, right? Word was there in the hard disk stored. And once I click on to this, so it will create some processors. We call them processors, which is indicate this program is running for the moment. That process will be taken into the RAM, or the main memory of the computer, right? So once the process is placed inside the RAM, then only we will be able to see that that program is running for the moment. Are we clear with this, people? Yes, so when it is reside in the hard disk, it is called a program. And when I execute it, it's called a process. When the processors are taken into the RAM, then only we can execute, or we can interact with the program that we want. Right. Okay. So now, when it comes to the process, since it is coming to the RAM, these processes need to be handled. Like, someone should decide which process that you are going to put inside the RAM, right? And on which time, or like, and how many time that process will be given to do its execution, when it is going to start, when it is going to end, right? Likewise. So in simple terms, someone should be there to manage these processes. It's not only one process that is there on the CPU and at the RAM, right? Like I show you, if you go to the task manager by pressing Control Alt Delete, you can see like there are many processes are running for the moment, right? If you go to the memory, you can see like I have 8 GB of memory and 6 GB are being used, right? And it shows 15.5 GB over here because it's getting the help of the virtual memory, something called virtual memory. It's not the physical memory that we are talking about. Some little advanced feature when it comes to the virtual memory. And look at the CPU. CPU is interacting with 231 process for the moment. It doesn't mean all these 231 are inside the CPU. There's only one process inside the CPU for the moment. But it switches very quickly in a very speedy manner that we cannot capture, even that we cannot capture, right? So the CPU is always giving the chance to all these 231 processors time by time and switching them in a very, very speedy way. So that is why the CPU needs that much of speed, right? So in my one, it says 2.11 gigahertz, right? And you can see sometimes it goes beyond 2.11. See 2.64 now, 2.8 somewhere, right? So base speed is the speed which where the processor is using in optimal speed. It can go beyond that, or it can go lower than that as well. Somehow it indicates like how many processes are being handled inside the CPU for the moment, right? So this particular thing, like I said, my all these 200 and whatever, let's say there are 230 processors inside the RAM for the moment, right? And there is the CPU. It takes only one of these processors, only one. So there should be a person or like particular process who switches the processors from RAM to the CPU and again from CPU to the RAM. So that is helped by operating system, right? He's the one who is taking care of these switchings with some help of some other applications. We call them schedulers. It is not in your syllabus. So with the help of schedulers, it will do this switching task. So majorly managing these processes are done by the operating system. People, are we clear about this?
Clear, sir.
Right. Okay. And one another task is called the memory management. And I think you got an idea, even in the picture I have shown you. There are 3 processors on the RAM. So like I showed earlier, there are 230 odd processors that they are in the RAM. And again, when the processors are on the RAM, operating system needs to clarify like how much of space that a process can be allocated, and operating system should vacant that process for that vacant that space for that particular process all the time it is being executed, all the time it is staying in the RAM, right? When the task is done, this process will be removed to give that space to another process, right? So these are the things that the operating system need to do regarding the memory management, right? Allocating the memory, deallocating the memory. Deallocating means like clearing out the memory that is being given, right? And deciding how many processes are going to be in the RAM for a specific moment, right? So likewise, the memory management is done by the operating system, right? So to manage the RAM, most of the time, operating system is getting the help of the hard disk. So he will vacant a specific area of the hard disk to keep some particular processes which are not frequently using inside it, and giving the chance for the processes which have been frequently used from the CPU inside the RAM, right? So that means when the RAM is having many processes to be executed, the most needed portions or most needed processes will be there on the RAM. And from the hard disk, a special portion will be vacant to keep some other processes inside it which are not frequently used. All right. So when the crowdness or like when the busyness inside the RAM is done, these processes will be swept into this particular space. So likewise, the space of the RAM will be used efficiently by the operating system. So that is how the memory is also being managed by the operating system. And one important thing that the operating system is doing other than this are called the device management. What do we mean by the device? Any particular peripheral device can be category under the device. That means mouse, keyboard, scanners, printers, anything can be category under the device. So if we think about the device without thinking about these interfaces and software kind of things, let's think about a pen drive. Pen drive itself has a circuit inside it. That means it's something electronic and mechanical things, some circuits. And when we are fixing it to the computer, what we literally what we are doing is we are fixing a circuit into another circuit, right? Because the motherboard is the biggest circuit in the CPU. It has the USB ports welded into it. So when we connect a pen drive to that USB port, it means we are connecting a circuit to another circuit. And when a circuit being connected to another circuit, or in simple terms, when a device are being connected to another device, those two devices should get to know each other. Otherwise, they can't communicate. When the pen drive is connected to the laptop or to the computer, computer should know, or the motherboard should know, that there is a pen drive being connected to myself, as well as pen drive should know I am connected to a computer. All right. To do this understanding in between the devices, there is a software called device drivers, right? So whenever you are connecting a particular device, an external device, into your computer, the operating system is taking care of installing the proper device drivers regarding that device. For the most of the devices, if you connect a mouse for the very first time to a computer, you can see there is some installation processes going on the taskbar, right? Some green color bars are going over here and there, and they will give you a small message, your device is ready to use, right? So that message is here because operating system was taking care of installing the driver softwares or the device drivers regarding that external device. So if the operating system is not doing that, earlier the operating system was not capable of doing it. So the user have to install the device drivers separately before he connects a particular device into the computer, right? So even today, if you are connecting a printer to your computer, it's not going to understand, or it's not going to identify all the capabilities of the printer at once. You may connect the printer and can have a printout without a problem, but it's only regarding some basic papers. Maybe A4 printouts will only be out from that printer. But if that printer is capable of outputting many different sizes in many different paper modes, that of course need to be told to the computer. And when that device driver is complex in size, operating system will not be able to install all the driver softwares by itself and let the computer to understand the printer fully. On that case, we will be receiving a driver software inside a CD or a DVD when we are purchasing that specific device. In most of the cases, if you are purchasing a printer, they are include, you will see there is a CD or a DVD inside your printer packaging. Nowadays, they just mention a QR code on the printer package for us to scan and connect with the particular printer manufacturers' websites. So through that website, we have to first download the driver softwares and we have to install those driver softwares. Then only the computer can understand, okay, I'm connected to a printer, or a particular printer is connected with me, and that printer is capable of doing these kind of things. But when it comes to these small devices, like mouse, keyboards, USB pen drives, right, even a scanners, operating system itself has their driver softwares in it and will automatically install those driver softwares when we are connecting that particular thing. That is why we can see when a new pen or when a new particular device are being connected to our computer for the very first time, it will take some time to figure out what has been connected. It is because the operating system is installing the driver software. So when the operating system installs the driver softwares by itself, without putting us in a different or like in a difficult situation, we call those devices, the external devices, are plug and play devices, right? So if you think about a monitor can be plugged into the VGA port and we can directly use it. So those are called plug and play monitors. In very old days, they need to store or they need to install the drivers for the monitor, then only the monitor will be indicated. If you plug a USB pen drive nowadays, it is plug and play. If you connect a phone, still it is plug and play. A mouse, a keyboard, plug and play. What about an internet dongle, people? Is it a plug and play device? Any experience regarding a dongle, internet dongle? Is it a plug and play, or do we need to install the software by ourselves for the very first time? Yes? Any experience? Not much, right? Yeah. I think most of you are using Wi-Fi. Yes, yes. Odani, we have to install it. Yes. Sanushi, now there are some new dongles which are acting as a plug and play one, right? But still, the most of the dongles we have to install the driver software by ourselves. But if you think about now, I have connected a dongle to my laptop as well. So when I'm connected for the very first time, it is providing me to instructions. There's a new device being connected to your computer. What do you need to do with that? And there is a setup file and all these things. So I have to click on that and run it for one particular moment, right? And when each and every time that I'm connecting the my dongle or like my mobile router, it gives me this particular screen, right? So before it gives me this screen on the browser, it said me to it told me, it instructed me in the very first time to install it by myself, right? So likewise, the device drivers are there to understand or to communicate from the computer with another device, and if that is being installed by the operating system, automatically we call them plug and play devices. If not, we have to install those drivers by ourselves into the computer first. Then it will get to know, or it will recognize what's the device that has been connected to the computer, right? So that is what the operating system is playing when it is managing the devices, right? So here I have shown you the devices that the operating system is involved with: memories, central processing unit, the output devices, the input devices, the storage devices. So it goes. Yeah. Finally, the file management is done by the operating system. And I think you have a very good idea about file management, right? Since you are interacting with the computer. So first of all, if we do not have an operating system, we can't manage the files, people, right? So what you can see on the computer at any place are the files that you have made. So the folders, the structure called folder has given to us to arrange these files, right? So now if I double click on this shortcut, you can see folders are there, files are there. So files can have many different icons. Folders, they have a specific icon, and in case if you are zipping a folder, zipping means like you can compress a particular folder. Once you compress it, it's going to look like something like this. Let me show you. Now this is called a zip folder. Zipping means compressing or like reducing the size of the folder. But once we have compressed a folder, we won't be able to like open it like we open a normal folder, right? So I have compressed this Google Input Tool offline folder, which is stayed over here. When I compress that, this is the compressed folder that I have given. So I can double click on this, it will open. If I double click on this, it will ask from which particular program that it's going to open. And it's not going to open as a normal folder. First, it will ask to which place that this zip folder need to be extracted. Because we have compressed this. අකුල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒතර එයා අහනවා අකුල්ලා තියෙන එක මුලින්ම හරි විදිහට දිග අරගන්න ඕනේ කොතනටද? Right? So once we given a particular place, then it will extract and it will show us the particular way to interact. Right? So, and if we really don't know, right? See, now I'm inside the zip folder. It has extract all, right? So I can click on this and it will be extracted onto the same place. So because of that, I'm not going to extract it because it will ask, okay, there is another file in the same name. Do you want me to replace it or not? Right? Or else you can right click on the zip folder and you can say extract all. Then it will ask to which particular location that this zip file needs to be extracted. So we can browse it. And if I choose the desktop and I can click on the select folder, then I can click on the extract. So it will extract. That is happens over here. So earlier my zip folder was in here in the inside my software folder in the D drive. This is the one. So I extracted it to the desktop, right, with these files. So likewise, we can extract it. And all this extraction, file arrangement, file gatherings, all these things are given by the file management system, which is given by the operating system. So you are given a desktop, you are given the file explorer, it's from the operating system, right? So that is why without operating system, we won't be able to interact with the device. So the major component that the file management is providing you is a folder where you can create a folder very easily by right clicking, go into the new and create in a folder. And when you create a folder, that folder requires a name. If not, it will take the name new folder into it. So on the time that is being created, the name is highlighted. So if I give a particular name, so that particular name will be the name of this folder once I press enter. Right? These are the things that you know already, right? If I click on this, I can rename the folder to another particular name. And by right clicking this, I can do many other tasks with this right click menu. I can delete it, I can cut it, I can copy it to different places. Then I can manage that folder in the way I want. Right, Lama, give me a second. Right, so regarding the file management, people, I'm going to talk about that by next week, right? So we had the, yeah, most probably we'll be able to finish the lesson by next week, right? There are little things for us to talk about. And since you are having the note, please refer this note because this note has made from only the needed part from your textbook, right? This is extracted from your textbook, right? So if you go through this, you will be having a very good idea about the operating system. So we'll meet on next week and we'll go through the other things. right? So let's hope and pray we will be able to finish the lesson by next week. Then we can move to the last lesson, which is the database management systems. Right? Okay, people. So I'll end the session from here just for today, right? And I will see you on next week for the very same time to talk about the operating system again, right? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a very good night.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Goodbye, sir. Have
Thank
a
you.
nice
Thank you,
day.
everyone. Right. Okay. Have a nice
Thank
day,
you, sir.
people. Thank you.